We need a villain of such incredible evil, such amazing power, such... What? He's not a villain? He's a nemesis? What's a nemesis? And why is he more powerful than a villain? Who's your nemesis? I know who mine is. It's that little old lady on the corner who looks at me every time I walk past. Yeah, a little ninja in disguise, I bet. Hello and welcome to this episode of Campaign Creator. My name is Guy and we are looking today at creating the Nemesis based on what we did last week. Now, the Nemesis is the highest form of evil in your campaign world. It is the big bad endgame monster that we are all trying to find in our campaign worlds that we're going to fight against and hopefully defeat and therefore win the game. You don't necessarily need to have just one nemesis. You can have multiple nemeses running around the planet, doing dastardly deeds at different times, please, because otherwise your players will simply get exhausted trying to save the world from so many different evils. Just run one nemesis at a time. It makes life a lot easier for the players and for yourself as well. So we're going to concentrate on just one nemesis for this particular campaign creation that we're doing, and then we can add on more as we need to, and some are going to emerge, as a matter of fact, throughout the course of our process. Now, as last week, this week, I will be doing exactly what I did last week, and so should you. As you watch this video, there will be moments where I am creating, you should be creating. If you don't want to see those moments where I'm busy working through the answers to the questions that I pose and help use to guide me on my campaign creator, watch down below in the doobly-doo. You can bounce between the various points that we're going to be talking about in today's video. So, a brief summary of what we did last week is unnecessary because you can go and watch the video. However, if you do not have your World Anvil page open, or your OneNote or Evernote or pretty page or text document or ye old handy book, if you don't have that handy, go get it now. It really will be useful as we're going to be working on our Nemesis today. I am using, of course, World Anvil. I like what World Anvil prompts me to do. It makes me think outside of the box sometimes, as well as reminds me of what we did last week, and it kind of keeps everything organized. So when we look back at Uther's Dragons, which is the name of the campaign that we came up with, we have the sentence: Jakar wants the kingdom of Uther before the next planetary alignment, but is having difficulty taking it over using vast Slard forces because the protectors of Uther are exceptionally powerful. That doesn't seem like a very interesting campaign at the moment, and it isn't, because we haven't developed it or fleshed it out, but we have the idea and we can now adjust and tweak accordingly. The theme that we're going with is that virtue triumphs evil, doing the right thing leads to victory, greed leads to destruction. So that is going to be our theme running through most of the adventures that we will be creating in our campaign. We've then further extrapolated our sentence by adding in our theme to the sentence. So the kingdom of Uther contains dragon eggs, which Jakar wants, but the eggs will hatch upon the next planetary alignment. Now, Jakar is greedy for the dragon's power. What this automatically suggests to me is that should Jakar succeed in getting the dragon eggs, he will spawn dragons, and those will be used against the players in the final end game. If Jakar is prevented from getting the dragons, the players will have dragons that they can then use against Jakar. So there are already rumblings and rumors of our final showdown starting to occur from just a few sentences that we spent a few moments on. So I'm on World Anvil. I'm going to go now back to our main page where it's going to prompt us to do a lot of different things. There are so many templates here. Where do we even start? Well, we're not looking there. Well, we are looking there, as a matter of fact, because that's where we are. We're going to start with the character. We're going to go to our nemesis, Jakar, because he has so many questions that we need to answer in order to be able to move forward. That is what we need to do. So the very first thing we're going to type in here is, this is a character. We're going to type in his full name, Jakar. What? We're going to fill in this template. We're actually going to add in some more templates here as well. You can see there's this big red block that talks to the templates that we're going to be using. Those templates are described in this book, Creating Epic Campaigns. You don't need to buy it in order to fulfill these videos, so please don't think that you need to. It is just a nice book to have if you want to refer to more specific details, which we don't go into here. Now, We're going to fill in this, we're going to fill in some of these other bits and pieces as well, which we're going to come back to, so don't stress, we don't have all of this information just yet. Now, Jakar, we need to convey our theme: virtue triumphs evil, greed causes destruction. We need to somehow give our players the sense that Jakar is the embodiment of the theme. So I think we need to give him a title that's going to drive that story home. So whether the players find out about the big bad at the very beginning of the campaign or later on, when they hear the name, they go, ho, 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 you monster. You fit within the theme that we've been exposed to thus far. Or when they hear it, they go, that is the theme. So our theme, of course, greed brings about destruction. So I think if we title him Jakar, World Eater, I think that gives us a sense of just how greedy he is. For now, we can come back and change it. Don't stress. Jakar, World Eater. Does he have a first name? Let's call him Lord Jakar, World Eater. Yeah, there we go. That's fine. For now, that's okay. That's all right. There's a vignette here that we can fill in. That's going to go. We're going to go through that later on, where we describe stuff, bits and pieces as we need to. All of these kinds of things we're going to add in year of birth. So we need to think about setting up a world current date. Now, what I do like about World Anvil is that there are these prompts. This will display the current age if you set your world's current date, which we haven't yet done. So we're going to go and do that because there are some functions in here that are going to really come in handy later on, such as timeline management, generating our own calendars for our worlds, all those kinds of things that we want to enhance our storytelling options with. It's all kind of laid out here for us nice and easy. So we're going to come back to that one. All right, we're going to go to this template here called Nemesis/Villain. Now, when we have the drop-down option, we have all of these different things. Now, I've done videos on what these mean and how to unpack them. If you haven't seen them, go back in the channel and you'll see there is a discussion on what is a blunt force trauma nemesis, what's a never-present nemesis, what's a mental plotter nemesis. Now, in the games that I have been running, I have dealt with all three different types: the never-present, the blunt force, and the plotter. I think in this instance, I'm going to go for a very specific type of nemesis. I think that Jakar, World Eater, is going to be a blunt force trauma nemesis. He is going to be present all the time as this powerful, malevolent, evil force that the players are going to be fighting against all the time. They're going to know exactly who their enemy is, but he is too powerful for them to approach. So I like that. Titles, what is their honorific title? Well, World Eater is his title. Why are they following their master? In this case, they are the master, so we leave that blank. We don't need to fill that in. A quirk. What is the quirk that makes Jakar stand out? Now, this is just one of many little things that we can fill in and kind of go through as we need to. I'm thinking, as a quirk, the thing about blunt force trauma nemesis is that they need to be present. They need to be always visible. When you think of a blunt force trauma nemesis, we're talking things like Darth Vader, Skeletor, we're talking the Predator or the Alien from the films Predator or Alien. We are looking at those kinds of individuals that are really dangerous, but they're also very visible. So the quirk needs to be like that as well. If you look at Darth Vader's quirk, what was his big quirk? His breathing apparatus. He couldn't hide. He could hold his breath and then it would stop, and then he could start it again. But we could hear that way before we ever even knew that he was in the room. So that was an amazing quirk. I think the quirk that we're going to give Jakar is, I think, because the whole idea of greed brings about destruction, I think Jakar needs to be this very corpulent, fat, monstrous type of being. So the quirk we're going to give him is, I think, this pervasive, hopefully spelling checker will sort this out, a pervasive stench of rotting meat. I think that's what we're going to need to do. Okay, so he has got this quirk. He's this blunt force trauma nemesis. He's always going to be visible, leading his forces. Maybe not leading them, maybe he's in the back. There's this incredible sense of power. I'm also seeing Lord Harkonnen from the Dune series. So, there's lots of things that we can draw on in terms of these kinds of enemies. Visually, we can bring on that as well. Again, do you see how the theme works? So, back to the template. Now, we've got equipment here. What equipment are they likely to carry right now? Why is this important? Why is this important? There's a reason for it. And what it does is Darth Vader had a red lightsaber. Now I keep going back to Darth Saber, who had a Lord Vader in his pocket. Darth Vader is such an iconic individual, and there's a reason why he's an iconic individual, is because he tick boxed all of these, if you like. He ticked every single box that we go through in this process, and it's a very strong visual for you to sort of reference and sort of keep in your mind. If you look at the Predator, what did the Predator have in terms of unique equipment? It had those tracking things, but it also had the mask scanning stuff. It was very unique to it. The alien monster, what equipment did the alien monster have on it? It had that mouth thing. Not technically equipment, it was a biological thing, but that mouth thing was unique to it. So when we think about what equipment could be unique to Lord Jakar, he's greedy. And I think if he has a scepter, or perhaps it's a mouth apparatus, which when he opens his mouth, it sucks the life out of his enemy and he just absorbs it and gets bigger. I kind of like that. Again, thematically, it's pushing us. Our theme is pushing us in our development to make it, how do we make him greedy? Well, he has this thing, this device. Maybe it's not his mouth, though. Maybe we need to think of something else that he can have that is going to do what we want it to do. Is it a scepter or is it a staff? I'm not convinced that is going to be something of value. Is it an adaptation of him? Something that consumes him? That's an interesting thought. What if it's a symbiont? Remember, he's after these dragons. So what if there was this thing that gave him power, but it fed off of him? I like that idea because he has sacrificed himself by taking on whatever it is that's consuming him. He has to consume enemies in order to survive. His greed for power has put him in this position where if he does not consume and absorb and eat the world, he will be consumed. And that's our theme coming back. There we go. Bingo. Done. Thank you. That's my thought process. Trying to link the theme back to everything. So he has this attachment, this monster, this beast, this growth. I'm trying to just run through options, but I think it's going to be a slug-like thing. For lack of a better word, a slard slug is attached to his spine and slowly sucks the life from him. However, if he consumes living flesh, it feeds off of that instead. In exchange, the slard slug enhances his power. But what kind of power does he have? I don't see him as being massively corpulent anymore. I now see him as being this rotting, cadaverous thing with this slug on his back that must consume everything to survive. Or maybe he is still fat. I don't know. We'll come back to that. Greed has got to play a part in it. And I remember we said fat was for a reason. So, okay, we're going to come back to that. The slug, however, enhances his power. Because he's greedy for power. He wants the dragons because he wants to consume the dragons. He wants to eat the dragon eggs. He doesn't want the dragons themselves necessarily. Or at least he wants them to hatch, and then he wants to consume the dragon, because that's the ultimate form of mystical power, I suppose. Okay, so what does this slug give him in exchange? Physical power? Mental power? Magic? Divine power? Well, I've chosen Dungeons & Dragons as my setting, so I've got various magical options available. He's using the slard, which come from a different dimension, which I do like. I think he should have... I want it to be different. It enhances his... I don't want him to be a necromancer, because that's sort of cliched. It enhances his... I think it can just be physical power. I think he's just a terrifyingly powerful warrior. So it sucks off his life force. He in turn can consume others. But it enhances his strength and physical resistance. All right. There we go. So the slug. We'll have to think of a name. I'm going to put an @ sign here. Slug gets an @ and person is correct. Okay, so I believe that's how we've now attached that to this thingy. I think. No. This sits in there. All right. So this monstrosity, we'll come up with a name. We'll come back to it. We will come back to it. Is attached to his spine. All right. Good. Right. What is his desire? Is it chocolate? Is it power? Is it an afternoon without the kids? No, it isn't. It is world domination, so that he can be all-powerful and eventually consume the slug. That's his ultimate goal. World domination, so that he can be all-powerful and eventually consume the slug, and then take on more worlds All right, simple, fine. Now we start getting into defining him. Why is it important for us to do this now at the very beginning of our campaign creation? It isn't. It isn't. We can stop and go and work on some other stuff if we really wanted to. I like to do this, though, because what this now does is it solidifies in my head that we have this incredibly powerful beast with this weird slug-like creature, which has made him very, very strong. Very dominant. So he can sort of crush the heads of his enemies and push them aside and walk through battle, so that when our heroes see him, they go, we're not fighting that whatsoever. I like to put all this down now so that I have in my head this individual, so that when I'm trying to express my campaign adventures, when I'm trying to work out what adventures are going to be happening, I try and put myself in the form of Jakar, this incredibly powerful world eater. And what is Jakar going to do? How is he going to enact his plan? And by having these things, I can do that easier, if you like. So I'm going to fill these details in. You don't have to if you don't want to. And again, we're going to work through running all of this information, dealing with all of this stuff. We're going to say, okay, how do we do it, and go from there. So, facial features. What are his facial features? I think having him big and not muscular. I don't know. I'm thinking. I've got lots to think about. There's some stuff to think about. My debate in my head is if I have him large, fat, and corpulent, it definitely gives us that greed sensation. If I have a muscular, it doesn't do the right thing. So it doesn't send the right message. Muscular is not about greed, it's about power. And our theme is not power, our theme is greed. In his case, he wants power so that he can satisfy his greed. So we need to have that. So facial features, I'm going to say massive, fat jowls and thick black lips. Dark eyes. Does he have hair? No. Clean shaven. Okay. Speech pattern. I think he should speak with this anticipation of consuming everything. So he's always slightly drooling because of his delight at consuming everything. So he speaks with a drooling, slathering anticipation of eating. Just the way that you get when you see a freshly made McDonald's burger. What? No, not that face. That's the face of I really have hit the bottom of the barrel. Right, so drooling, slathering, anticipation of eating. I like that. That gives me a real sense of who he is. Body type, rolls of fat, oily, just corpulent. Maybe with open sores and scars. Again, just sort of this thing, this monstrous monster. Emotional state. What is their usual emotional state? So I think his should be arrogance. Arrogance is common in villains and nemesis. It really is, and there's a reason for it, is that these people usually try and take over the world because they believe they can, and that they should, and nobody else can stop them. I think his emotional state is going to be expectant victory. I think he's going to just irreverent, disdain for life, arrogant, desire. I think that's his sort of. Yeah, I think that's his sort of emotional state. We can put in here that he is driven by passion to consume. I think that's also important. When we see him, what do we see? Now, there's a whole other section to this template that we're going to go to later on where we can add in imagery and things. But this is what we use to describe the character to the players. So when the players first see Lord Jakar, World Eater. What do they see? I think we can say a massive, bloated form, moving with terrible power, impervious to attacks, and eager to slay anyone. I think that's, because he's going to grab people, and I think he is going to open his mouth and just consume them bodily. I think that's what we're going to do. And as he's doing that, the slug on the back of his back just pulsates with energy, and he just gets bigger and stronger, or his wounds heal shut. I think that's what we're going to go with. What do we hear when we see him? I think I'm just trying to create the most repugnant creature that I can possibly do. So I'm going to say drool, hitting floor, dripping, flesh on flesh, slapping. It's nasty. It's nasty what we're putting in here. Heavy breathing. It really does sound like an orgy of things, and I think that's really what it is. The smell is rotting flesh, unwashed, unclean, soiled, rank stench. That's it. That's what we need. How does he feel? I think this is where we can make it truly repulsive. Soft. Fluid filled, moist skin sack. I don't know. Don't judge me. I am channeling this monster where when you grab him, it's like grabbing onto these boils, and it's that's what we want. That's what we want. Okay, so when he is happy, does he sing? Does he dance? No, I think when he is happy, what is his emotional state? I think he is, he shakes with joy and anticipation of eating. Kind of like how I am when I'm standing in front of the deep freeze. It's like, or in front of the fridge. It's like, when he's sad, I think he should be incredibly violent, destructive, and I think that he should be uncompromising and irrational. Horrid way to express one's sadness. When he's angry, I kind of feel that he should be the opposite. I think he should be calm. I think he should be cold. I think he should be I think when he's angry, I'm angry. You have thwarted me, you creatures. I have been bested. Now, if you'd be so kind as to come here, so that I might eat you. Calm, cold, writhing vortex of hatred, writhing vortex of hatred and loathing. All right, so that's what he's like when he's angry. The biography, I'm not going to add in too much here because I'm going to leave this so that as I sort of think about things, that's where we're going to go. Storyteller's notes, this is what I have seeded with my players, so I haven't put anything in yet. I'm not going to put anything in yet because we haven't actually met him. So we've got in some interesting details here, and we haven't yet even got to writing the vignette for this character. We haven't got to looking at any of these kinds of things as well, which we're going to go into. We're going to start adding into. Humans, we haven't added any species yet. We haven't added in any ethnicities yet. We haven't added in geography yet. We've got so much to do, but we're not panicking. We're not going, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. Wait, quickly, I'm going to get in some quick shots here. 450 pounds. He is massive. Height, 6 foot, 8 inches. Oops, 8 ats. 8 inches. Where's the inches on my keyboard? I'll find it. 6 foot, 8. We'll come back to it. Hair, none. Eyes, black. Black as death. Circumstances of death, he's not dead. Circumstances of birth. Alright, so again, this is what I like about all these prompts. Not critical for us just yet. We're going to come back to these. Lots of these we can leave as just, so here, very quickly, I'm going to fill in a vignette. You should do the same. A massive, bloated, horrific monster of a man. And as I say that, I pause. I think it should be a woman. I think that's probably more terrifying. Or is it? Or isn't it? Or is it? Or isn't it? As a man, we can just be repulsed by him and perhaps pity him for what he's done. As a woman, there is, and I don't know, rightly or wrongly, no, definitely wrongly, that revulsion goes to the next level, perhaps. Because now we could potentially have Lord Jakar try to seduce some of the male players, or the male characters anyway. We could have the male try to seduce female PCs, but that is to a large degree expected. So if it's a female and she wants, all I want is to consume, but for you, boy, for you, I'll make an exception. Come here and show Mama some love. I think Lord Jakar is going to become Lady Jakar. I think that's what she is going to be. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Now, this is the important thing. We have not set in stone anything. Our players don't know anything about Lady Jakar, Lord Jakar, whatever. We are free to change as we so choose. And so that's what I'm doing quickly, just changing it to she, her. I think that's more terrifying, to have this massive woman who's so powerful, and yet we can play around with expectations like this. I think this is going to be absolutely terrifying. Or not. I don't know. I don't know. We don't know. That's the big thing. We do not know until we get there. Okay, so a massive, bloated, horrific monster of a woman who eats those whom she defeats to grow. empower or restore her physical form. A large slug-like growth is attached to her back, and this gives her incredible strength and resilience. Resilience. That's all we need to do for now. So we're going to save the changes. There is so much more that we can unpack in this creature. We can add images. We can do all kinds of things. But when we go to preview, we start to see already that we're getting some interesting little bits. She's her title is World Eater. She's a blunt force trauma. We've got all of these little quick stat blocks coming through. So when we start to describe her, there is some really cool stuff coming through that we can now quickly look at, quickly use during our campaign session. When the characters hear the drip, splodge, drip, that's going to send shivers down their spine when they know that she is somewhere nearby. That rotting flesh, the unwashed sebum that is all over her body, that soiled stench of her loincloth, that's going to give just nightmares to anyone who's encountering her. What I do like is the slugs, the slod slug is linked. So we can now click on that and it will take us to a blank page. Or wherever it goes, we haven't made it yet, so it's just going to bring us back here. So we have now hyperlinked this around so we can go where we need to go, and things will start to make more sense, so that if the players attack the slug first, we can click on that and go through that as we're running our game. Just, again, one of those things why I like to use World Anvil. All right, there are all these other things we're going to come back to in more episodes next week as we continue forward, as we continue to make changes, as we continue to grow. There's all these wonderful things we're going to add in. We're going to look at ethnicity, species, current location. All of that is coming. Do not stress. One of the things that I think that is very important for us to do is to get a visual image of this thing going on. So when we then start to go through other templates, and there's things about relationships that she might have with other characters. We can add in some notes as well. But when we start to really dive into this, we've got naming conventions, mental state, physical, personal. All of this we can go in and populate as we need to. I've done videos on how you fill this information in, so you can go and check those out also on this channel. But go back to your theme, see how it applies, and then come back to it. So I'm going to fill this in, not on the video. I don't think we need to do that. If you would like me to do that, though, leave your comments below. I can only know what to do when you tell me what you want. So that is something to bear in mind. Now, we've got this great character, this corpulent beast who is after the dragon egg so that she can take over the world and eventually eat the slug as well. That's just such a horrid mental image. To me, that works. If I can now convey that to my players, if I can get my players and their characters to see that and to have that sense of revulsion, that this is a beast that they're almost afraid when they stab it with a sword, it's going to burst and just be nasty inside. Just nasty. That's nasty, Shrek. Nasty. When it does that, if I can do that, that's an elicited emotion that is just juicy. And I chose that word specifically for everybody to wrap their heads around, for this thing to be a particularly nasty creature. Now, it doesn't really matter the main campaign idea. The idea of defeating this thing starts to become all pervasive, in the minds anyway, of our players. Until next time, you know what to do, and that is carry on filling out these details. So, happy campaign creating.
Hit the like button, my precious dear. Or the subscribe button if you want to see more of, well, me. And if you want to be alerted to any potential delights to consume. Oh, to consume everything. Hit the Goblin Bell. Now come closer, so that I might eat you.
That's terrible. Absolutely terrible.